Hi everyone, welcome to the Product Marketing Festival. Thank you so much for tuning in. We hope you enjoy the sessions that we have lined up for you today. With expert presentations, specialist talks and deep dive panel sessions on the agenda, suffice to say, you're in for a treat. Just before we jump in, I want to take a moment to thank everyone who's played a part in making this event possible. Our sponsors, partners, speakers, presenters, and of course you, the product marketing community. You can engage with all our speakers and their sessions today by posting your questions in the comments section of the broadcast, or you can reach out to them in our Slack community. Remember, you can catch up with all this week's content on demand, plus a whole host of other amazing benefits by becoming a PMA member. And whilst you're at it, why not check out Product Marketing Core, our industry-renowned certification. But for now, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our next session.
Good afternoon. My name is Nick Knapper, Product Marketing Lead at Molly. And today we'll be talking about how us product marketers can future-proof our function and learn a little bit about how and when you'll need to scale your team. A task much easier said than done. Why I believe this story is so important is that there really isn't a how-to guide out there that prepares you for these situations. How do you know when you need to scale your team? Is it as simple and obvious as finding yourself working 80-hour work weeks on the brink of burnout? Or is there an easier way? How do you avoid singing the same hiring anthem every quarter, but your song is not heard by management or HR? Something I found increasingly frustrating. And how do you make a strong case for a new hire over priority hires such as engineering or product management? And what I hope you take away from this presentation is a few key learnings on how to not only set yourself up for success, but also your team. So during my career, I've had the opportunity to build multidisciplinary marketing teams at Tencent and now more recently at Molly. And each journey has had its own unique challenges and learnings. And when I'm not exploring team dynamics, putting out fires, trying to hire faster than lightning bolts, I generally spend my time outside of work, cooking, and trying not to burn down the kitchen at the same time. I'm extremely passionate about the practice of product marketing and a true advocate for the role we play in driving a business's products positioning, adoption, and usage, all whilst keeping the customer at the center of everything we do. So a little bit about Molly. So Molly is a European fintech company powering the growth of just over 120,000 customers' online payments. We might look and sound like a scale-up, and indeed, we are in fact scaling at hyper growth rates, but we've really been in the online payments industry for about over 16 years, so we really know a thing or two about conversion and chargebacks. So why the need to scale now? And I think, clearly defining the value that we offer our customers, it's something that's been consistent throughout the narrative of Molly's business life cycle. And with the acceleration of offline businesses to online throughout the pandemic, it's catapulted our growth tenfold. And with more businesses wanting, more of Molly, we need to meet this growth and ensure that we can scale our businesses end-to-end offering to exceed the demand that we're experiencing across Europe. So what will we discuss today? In the most literal and honest way possible, I'll take you through my journey of landing in an incredibly promising hot mess and take you through the wonderful and not so wonderful challenges I faced from starting as one PMM 6 months ago to leading a multidisciplinary PMM team, overseeing go-to-market, commerce enablement, segmentation, targeting, positioning, and research and insights. So I think one of the biggest challenges we face as product marketers is that the practice of product marketing is so diverse, and it takes many different forms depending on the industry, company lifecycle, or customer segment your function is servicing. And what this really means is that sometimes it's not always clear where responsibility and accountability starts and ends across various work streams where PMMs typically own. And a key insight that I've learned and leveraged at both Tencent and Molly is that we don't leverage the product roadmap enough. And I believe we're an extension of the product engineering roadmap. And most times, if not every time, what goes in usually has to come out, meaning that in one way or another, the work that our product teams deliver will need to be shipped, meaning that in some shape or form, there will need to be an update targeted at our end user. And if we really need to think about it and remove all the noise, I really believe that, we need to do 4 things incredibly well. But, these are not just 4 simple tasks. These are entire work streams. So you also need to be realistic about what you can confidently deliver, and even more realistic about what you can't. And I so often hear, managers saying, just say no. Have you said no to your VP or your new CTO? It's a daunting task. So what I will try and do today is explain a very diplomatic way to logically enable yourself to actually say no. And I'll explain a little bit more about this shortly. So let's use a real world example. So you might be thinking, that's a cute tank, and it is, but it's a tank on its own. No cavalry, no air support. Maybe it doesn't even have any diesel in it. And if you're really preparing for war, or at least planning to build your PMM army, you're probably going to need more than 1 tank. And I think that, scaling your PMM function, it's a challenging task, but it's also incredibly fulfilling and rewarding. So how do you know when to scale? And, really what I encountered was that there are sometimes obvious signs and there are sometimes not so obvious signs. And what I'll talk you through over the next few minutes is really trying to understand what these signals look like and how to act on them. The first time around, the signs are not so obvious. We're so focused on execution. We start to think that working 12-hour days, most, if not all weekends, becomes the norm. And to be honest, it's not. And burnout is a real thing. But we're humans, we're not robots, and we want to exceed expectations. We want to deliver. We want to prove ourselves. And that's totally okay. But we need to approach this in a way that's realistic and respectful to ourselves, and more importantly, the quality of work that we aspire to deliver. And we often talk about the golden PMM x PM ratio, product managers to product marketing managers. What's healthy, what's not healthy. And what I mentioned earlier is that usually what goes in must come out. And I was at a point where I was servicing upwards of 5, 6, or 7 at a time of product managers. And they're all releasing and planning different features that require some sort of communication or launch. And trying to understand that you can do this on your own and trying to make a case for that is your first mistake. So how do you quantify the problem? And this is quite a manual process, which takes about 30 minutes, but the output is potentially life-changing. At least it was for me. So I had several product launches over the next quarter, and all of them involved your typical product launch: material development, research, planning, stakeholder management, alignment, team updates, you know the list. And I felt, looking at my quarterly activity plan, it's impossible to launch all of this, at least if I still wanted to have some sort of life outside of the office. So what I did is I categorized each different type of GTM that we needed to launch. And I allocated the time associated with each tier to really help both myself and other teams outside of the product org really understand how much planning and hours actually require this launch to be successful. And I went back over the duration of 2 months and categorized all the time that I was in meetings, kickoffs, research. And, I really started to see that I needed to deliver at least, 3 tier 2 GTM launches within the next 10 weeks. And this was nearly impossible. So it was possible, but I would be working 8 to 8 and probably most weekends, which means that it's not the most sustainable approach. And what I started to see was how and why I needed to scale my function. And it was now becoming glaringly obvious, not only to me, but also to my manager, is that if you want to increase your team's capacity and accelerate your delivery, you really have to understand how much you can confidently deliver on and what you cannot. And I think it's really important that, in order to do a good job and not set yourself up for success, but also for your stakeholders, here's where, the key difference is with being able to communicate and articulate what's realistically deliverable and what's not, and then really setting a precedent on, putting it back to the product team and telling them what they need to prioritize. And I think the point that I mentioned earlier was leveraging the roadmap, like use the product roadmap to your advantage, not against you. And now that the different stakeholders, as I said, were aware of the different types of GTM, the amount of hours that was needed, we really needed to make a decision on what do we prioritize. How do you understand when you're looking at a priority matrix for your engineering teams to make sure that we're launching features and products that are servicing our customers and not making us lose customers, but gain customers? That's something that you can give advice on and guidance, but it's not something for you, I believe, to have a final decision on. And you really need to push back on the product teams to say, well, this is realistically what we can do. And if not, you need to hire more. And that was probably the easiest point in the whole overview and kind of restructuring my function, and why we needed additional capacity was that all teams now clearly understood the challenge that I, as a product marketer, faced on my own. So what can we take away from today? So what can you take away from today? Sometimes it's a simple audit of your time available versus time needed to meet your business's go-to-market requirements, or just to be able to quantify your entire product marketing scope and the different types of work streams that you need to deliver across over and above the launches that you might need to be seeing through. So if we had to recap on 3 lessons to help you with your hiring narrative, one would be to define your environment. And that's, as mentioned, a simple audit of the time needed to carry out your PMM function. 2 would be, define your reality. And that's really going back and looking at forward-looking versus retrospectively, and what you can accomplish on your own. And if you had one more headcount, how would that accelerate your team's delivery and quality of work? And 3 is really, communicating your reality. So everything that you've audited, writing out, how would you shape this narrative, and who do you want this narrative to land with? Typically, it would be your line manager, maybe potentially other heads of departments that you work with or sit outside of your peripheral. And I hope that, from the learnings that I've shared, it's not that hard. It might take some time to do the audit and compile the rationale, but I found that this process is simple, it's honest, it's transparent, it really works, and I hope that it helps you build your product marketing foundation. If you have any questions, please reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to have a chat or a quick virtual coffee, or ping me on the Product Marketing Alliance Slack channel. Thanks so much.